Houston. Coming up this hour, we'll dive into the top stories of the day, including a new poll looking at the current president's approval rating for his first 100 days in office. I'm Ernie Manous.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. We'll also talk to the Honorable Thomas B. Griffith, a former judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, to better understand the relationship between the judiciary and executive branches.
And I'm Frank Billingsley, plus Dr. Mandy Neeble Diamond. She's going to discuss a recent survey that found that more women are exploring a sober lifestyle.
And as Ernie, Frank, and I discuss the top headlines of the day, we want your thoughts, questions, and concerns. Give us a call at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The Trump administration is approaching its first 100 days, and it's in a standoff with judges who've sounded the alarm about the circumvention of due process to crack down on illegal immigration. In defense of the president's orders, today, Border Czar Tom Homan addressed the recent arrest of a Wisconsin judge who's accused of illegally helping a Mexican national in her court evade immigration enforcement officers.
What I said from day one, you can sit aside and watch, you can argue against us all you want and protest all you want, but when you cross that line, I've said this 1,000 times, when you cross that line to impediment or knowingly harboring, concealing an illegal alien from ICE, you will be prosecuted.
The White House is facing lawsuits alleging the government deported people, including most recently a family with mixed legal status, without allowing them due process. Today, it said it intended to continue with large-scale operations. The White House announced the recent arrests of hundreds of people in Colorado Springs and Miami. NPR's Joel Rose looks at polls indicating how the public feels about Trump's immigration policies.
There's a CBS YouGov poll that shows 56% of Americans approve of President Trump's program to deport immigrants in the country illegally. Another Washington Post ABC Ipsos poll, though, found that only 46% now approve of Trump's handling of immigration. 53% disapprove.
Joel Rose reporting. Canadian voters heading to the polls selecting a prime minister. NPR's Jackie Northam reports much of the race has been centered on which candidate can best handle President Trump and his policies.
The two main contenders in Canada's federal election are current Prime Minister and leader of the Liberal Party, Mark Carney, and the head of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre. But a third figure, President Trump, has had an oversized impact on the election. Many Canadians are outraged about Trump's tariffs and threats to make the country the 51st state. That's hurt Conservative leader Poilievre, who's seen by many as Trump-light because of his rhetoric and messaging. That, in turn, has helped energize the elections and helped give Carney and the Liberals a substantial boost in the polls. Jackie Northam, NPR News.
Now that Pope Francis has been laid to rest, cardinals are preparing to select his successor. From Rome, NPR's Jason DeRose reports a conclave begins May 7th.
A papal conclave must begin between 15 and 20 days after the death of the Pope. There are currently 135 cardinals eligible to vote. The vast majority were appointed by Pope Francis. It's the most geographically diverse group in history, with more representatives from the Americas, Africa, and Asia than ever before. When the cardinals convene on May 7th, the electors will be sequestered in the Sistine Chapel and a nearby guest house. They'll take multiple votes each day until one candidate emerges with a 2/3 majority. Jason DeRose, NPR News, Rome.
This is NPR.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Gabrielle Dawkins. Houston police and Harris County deputies are looking into multiple crimes that occurred last night across the area. In total, 9 people were shot, according to authorities. That includes 3 kids under the age of 14 years old. Authorities are suspecting that was a drive-by shooting. Other victims last night include a man sitting at a bus stop and 2 others who were sitting in a car in the Montrose area. A few of the shootings turned out deadly. KHOU reports that all the incidents occurred within a 7-hour period. And fallout continues after a local mortuary is found to be storing bodies in deplorable, unrefrigerated conditions. News 88.7's Tom Perumian reports.
Richardson Mortuary on Brookfield Drive has been shuttered for close to 2 weeks. 13 bodies found on gurneys and examination tables in a room without refrigeration have been removed to other funeral homes. 89 cremated remains were also taken from the facility. Texas Funeral Service Commission's Scott Bingaman says it appears Richardson Mortuary has been operating in its dilapidated state for some time, possibly before Hurricane Beryl. A prolonged investigation is underway and no decision has been made on when or if it can resume service. I'm Tom Perumian, News 88.7.
The state's beekeepers are reporting record losses of bees. Bee deaths has risen steadily over the past 25 years. But in the past year, the increase in deaths has spiked. Dr. Garrett Slater is the honeybee specialist with Texas A&M.
These are beekeepers that have over 1,000 colonies to upwards to 50,000 colonies. And so it appears that these are the beekeepers that are experiencing high losses.
He says those commercial bee farmers are reporting that 65 to 70% of their bees are dying. An investigation is underway to determine the cause. It's currently 80 degrees on the UH campus, partly sunny with a high near 85. I'm Gabrielle Dawkins, News 88.7.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Progressive Insurance with its Name Your Price tool, a way to see coverage options based on a driver's budget. Learn more at progressive.com or 1-800-PROGRESSIVE. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Live from the University of Houston, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Hello, Houston.
It's Monday.
And I'm back.
I say hello, Houston, and you say Monday.
I said it's Monday in a positive way.
And they don't seem to care that I'm back. They've moved on.
You are back. Hey,
without
first things
me.
first, how's Mom?
Mom is good. She's back home. We had a weekend at the hospital, but we had really good care, and she is feeling herself, good or bad. She's back to Mom,
Nice.
and she's back home, and so we're very happy about all that. And I'm
So
very
we
happy.
love her.
You guys did a wonderful job on Friday. I listened in as little as I could on and off in the hospital, and I
I
enjoyed
know.
it.
We're getting T-shirts that say Ernie who?
If you want to know who Ernie is, you can always watch us on YouTube. Just go to the Houston Public Media channel. You'll find us there. Or remember, you can also just go to hellohouston.org. There's a big orange button. Press that, and you can watch us live as well as enjoy the experience of the show right here live. And now remember, when you do go to YouTube, hit that like and subscribe, and also comment if you want. There's a whole other world that goes on online I'm learning about when the show's on, of people chatting and going back and forth. Our phone line's always open for your thoughts. Call us, join the conversation, 713-440-8870. Or if you're a little shy and you'd rather just send an email, talk@hellohouston.org.
But what's so fun about YouTube is that people are commenting
Right, they're
live
having a
during the
side
show,
conversation.
and we have our YouTube community, so that is very fun. So be sure to join that.
I love it.
I do too.
Muggy weekend, but you know what? I was at the. I had a bunch of stuff going on. I was at Art of the World Gallery.
Yes, we talked about this on Friday.
Ray Ferreira's show was amazing.
Beautiful.
It's there through July. You should go and look at it. It's fabulous. I was at I emceed the Victory Gala for cancer to raise money. They raised $1.6 million.
Whoa.
And it all stays here in Houston.
Great.
And then I was at the polo match. Kevin and I chaired a career recovery center, and it's for people that need help with getting jobs, for whatever reason. And that was very successful. My point is, we had a breeze the whole time. It was hot and humid, but this breeze, which I took credit for, came through, and it was really a pleasant weekend.
Was it a breeze, or was it just the motion of the air around you and Kevin as you ran from event to event? It created a breeze for all of us.
We had fun. Just quick weather note, it's going to rain Wednesday, just so you know.
So be safe.
Okay.
So there goes all the fun we were just having.
Yeah,
into
no,
a little
but
puddle.
the weekend was great weather-wise. It was fun.
Next weekend?
It was
This
absolutely
weekend.
I know, but next weekend?
Next weekend is still a weekend away, and it's kind of iffy. But we'll talk as we get closer.
And we're going to talk all the the next couple hours with you. We've got some great topics coming up. We're going to look at the relationship between the judiciary and the executive branch. Fascinating conversation coming up on that so we can better understand what is happening in our world today. I know a lot of folks have a lot of questions about that. Plus, later on in the show, Celeste is going to help us understand what's going on with the Rockets and what we can look forward to.
Yeah.
We'll find that out.
Bittersweet moment, but yeah.
We always like to start, though, with the headlines of the day, and we always invite Celeste to start us off.
Ta-da!
President Trump's approval rating slipped to 41% in the latest CNN poll. And we will most likely start to seeing more polls popping back up as the president will hit his 100-day benchmark within his second term. The poll was conducted by the Social Science Research Solutions, and President Donald Trump's 41% approval rating is the lowest for any newly elected president at 100 days, dating back to at least Dwight Eisenhower, including Trump's own first term. Some interesting takeaways: just 22% of the poll takers say they strongly approve of President Trump's handling of the job, and about twice as many, at 45%, say they strongly disapprove of President Trump's handling of the job. Since March, there has also been some notable drops in approval from women and Hispanic Americans. Partisan views of Trump remain very polarized, which I don't think any of us are surprised by this. 86% of Republicans approve of President Trump, and 93% of Democrats are disapproving. But among political independents, the president's approval rating has dipped to 31%, matching his first-term low point with that group, and about the same as his standing with them in around January 2021. What are your thoughts on President Donald Trump's first 100 days? Is he doing that bad, or is this just an adjustment period? Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
Okay, now if I'm looking at here I go, polls again. If I'm looking at the polls correctly, it seems as though his support among his supporters has stayed consistent.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Nothing changed there.
Nothing has changed.
Where we notice the change are on those swing voters and independents and disillusioned Democrats who went over and voted for him seem to be coming back away from him. Does that mean they're sliding back to the Democrats? Not necessarily, but it's the people that he wowed and courted off of his, because you need more than just your strong supporters to win an election.
Right.
That's the group. And that's why it's so important and significant, because that's who decides who our next leader is. It's not the true partisans on either side. It's that middle group.
So let me ask you this, Ernie, because there's all this talk I hear of people saying, well, day one, the war's going to end, and day one, prices are going to go down, and day one this and day one that, and that hasn't happened. But the people on the periphery, the ones that he brought in, they didn't really believe that to begin with. Now, his core group probably believed it because they think he can do anything. Stopping a war on day one, only God has been able to do that, and certainly not Donald Trump. And so what do you think about that?
I actually would flip what you're saying. I think his followers, the real strong supporters of him,
don't care.
What he says doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If he says it and it doesn't happen, he has
still
to
believe
lose it.
I would actually disagree with that. I think that his supporters really want him to do the things that he's saying, and he has done it. I think that when we're looking at, regardless of political affiliation, everybody can agree President Trump's first 100 days of his second term has been complete disruption, basically, that he said he's going to be a disruptor.
Right, but you're talking about two different things here. He's talking about the promises he made of first day I'll do this, first day I'll do. His strong supporters, I believe, see it as that's Trump rhetoric. That's the way Trump expresses himself. A first day doesn't mean the first day. They give him this grace.
Okay.
He doesn't have to do what he says.
Which is what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah,
but it's happening.
It's
It didn't happen.
What he's
It's
done
happening.
is he's disrupted
they don't
the
see
system.
that as rhetoric.
They
think that is what he's going to do and say.
The folks that listened to him and believed what he said as factual, they're the ones that I think are disappointed. He said he would end it the first day.
Did anybody really believe that?
I think there's a group that voted for him, believing he would make this change. It didn't happen. That's why they're pulling away. I think the far left never believed a thing he said, and I think the far right don't believe the rhetoric he says, but believe in him and his mission.
I think that he wanted, President Donald Trump, what we're seeing in his second term is that he wanted to radically reshape America and the role that we play on the global stage. And whether you voted for him or not, there are a lot of people that agree with what he's doing in that reshaping of what America would look like.
And then there are those, and myself probably included to some degree, that agree with what he's doing. He's just not doing it the right way.
Yeah.
I mean, we have been screwed by China and the tariff wars for years. We need to do something about that. But you don't just slap tariffs on every country.
I think that's what's going to save.
And you got to secure the borders, but you just don't put people on airplanes without due process. So what he's doing and how he's doing it are so completely backward.
That's what saves his presidency, is that a lot of people agree with the ideas behind it. Yes, we have bloated government. Yes, the borders. That's what got him elected. It's the part for you to show up or shut up kind of thing.
Yeah, those chickens are coming home.
Speaking of saying what you think of those chickens, 713-440-8870. Let's see what Stephen from Cyprus thinks. Stephen, what's on your mind?
Good morning, guys. I was a little taken aback. In the 15 minutes before your show began, the report, I think it's called the Texas Standard, quoted two different polls, one that had the president's approval level a little bit above 50, one had it a little bit below. And then you come on with the lowest approval rating you can find from that ever unbiased source, CNN. You are doing yourself damage with your selection of things like that. There's nothing fair about your approach.
Well, we took our numbers from CNN.
Right.
That's what I just
But what
said.
I'm trying to find out here, and let me get clarity from our producers who did the polling that CNN is reporting, and we'll report that back so we know exactly who the source is, because you're absolutely correct.
Yeah,
whenever it comes to polling, you got to know who the source of the polls are. And you can go to sources that you are familiar with and recognize as fair and balanced, but you don't want polling sources that are biased.
And Ernie, you're very good at polls. So I think it's a little unfair to compare.
So just really quickly, the poll was conducted by the Social Science Research Solutions. It was reported on CNN.
Right.
So
Okay.
CNN did not actually conduct the poll.
Okay, back to my point to you, Ernie.
Okay.
I'm not sure it's fair to compare any poll today to what polling happened during Dwight D. Eisenhower's presidency. I mean, the way they conducted polls then and the way we conduct polls now, I think is probably significantly different. I would
say the methodology is different,
Well,
but I would say
right.
probably those older polls were more accurate than they are today.
Yes, I would too.
Yeah, because there was less sources. Steve, before we lose you there quickly, how do you think the president's doing in his first 100 days? Are you still with me, Steve, or did I lose you already?
He had a comment to make. He moved on.
Okay. Well, we had a comment too, Steve. I just wanted to check with you and see what you thought. If you want to give us a call back and let our producers know how you think President is doing, I'd love to know. Okay. Thank you. And remember, 713-440-8870. Always feel free to call in and share with us. Okay, here's an interesting story I've been following for a while. I live in the city. I'm kind of interested in it. But here we go. A former owner of the famed and now shuttered Third Ward restaurant, the Turkey Leg Hut, was arrested and charged for allegedly conspiring with others to burn down a bar in 2020. 42-year-old Lindell Price and two other men are accused of pouring gasoline at the entrance ramp and deck of Bar 5015, located in Houston's Third Ward, just a block away from the Turkey Leg Hut, and igniting the fire. There's a lot more details to the story, but I just want to start right there about...
Was it competition?
Well, yes, and the owner of that bar, Steve Rogers, was a former business partner of Lindell Price's. Lindell allegedly recruited two other gentlemen to help him with this. He allegedly provided payment to them after the fire. So it's kind of an interesting story. There's a history there of maybe fires being started in other things, like a stolen blue 1975 Chevy Nova back in 2020. My question is to all of you, though, is Turkey Leg Hut was an extremely successful business, plagued left and right by poor choices, it seems, by the ownership. And what disappoints me in this is it was a local business that hit a nerve that worked. it was always busy. There were always people there. I know people from all walks of life who at lunch had to go to Turkey Leg Hut to get those turkey legs, or in the evening.
So,
it was
so
popular.
why not just enjoy your success?
Right. What? It's almost like an American tragedy folded in here. And not only could it have been a success, now I'm going to get really highfalutin. Not only could it have been a successful business, it could have given generational wealth to that family. It was so successful and even kind of seemed to weather well during the pandemic as far as the takeout and all of that. And yet now, once again, there were problems all along. There seemed to be personal problems between owners, maybe divorces, claims of ownership, arson now. It's just sad.
You know, and you mentioned a car fire.
Yeah.
Well, and apparently gasoline is what they're using.
The propellant?
Allegedly, yes. Well, if you use gasoline to set a car on fire, they probably won't ever figure that out.
Yeah.
But if you use it to set a wooden deck on fire, they're going to figure that out. So it wasn't even. It seemed almost anger because it wasn't really thought through. It was like, I'm angry at this person and I'm going to set fire.
I'm curious, for folks listening right now, were you a huge turkey leg fan? You know, that there was something about those turkey legs people loved. What are your memories of a Turkey Leg Hut? Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
And we seem to be getting quite a few calls about our topic earlier. We were looking at a poll that was recently released, and the one that we grabbed from was by CNN, but it was not CNN who actually released the poll. It was conducted through science, the Social Science Research Solutions. And we want to invite you to give us a call at 713-440-8870. And we're going to go to our lines now. Wayne from Southwest. Hi, Wayne. Welcome to the conversation.
Yeah, well, hey, I'm running for the U.S. Congress because of Trump. I said, this guy asked me, he said, why are you running? I said, because of Trump. He doesn't need to be in there. I'm a Boy Scout, Eagle Scout. I don't lie. I try not to lie. But this guy, Trump, he knows no bounds. He has no guardrails. He just says whatever he wants, and then, hey, later on, he's not telling the truth. Well, they don't admit it. So I just can't believe people voted for that guy.
So your problem is his character.
Yeah, he's no Boy Scout. You know, honesty and trustworthy. You can't trust him, and that's a motto of the Boy Scouts. You know, hey, and I was raised in that. So hey,
Wayne, before we let you go, I'm curious too. What's your party affiliation, if you don't mind sharing?
You can't tell.
Well,
I just wanted to be clear on it.
Well, let me ask you, Wayne. Let me ask you this: have you ever voted for a Republican for president?
No.
No. You've always voted Democrat.
I've always, and because I have read 20 world history books, I should have been a lawyer. I tried to, but the LSAT kept me from getting in. So and lawyers, they are all just about Democrat. Every one of those lawyers, because they're informed. Yeah. They know about the past.
Well, I appreciate your passion. That's for sure.
Thanks
for
Wayne.
calling.
Wayne called us at 713-440-8870. Share your opinions with us.
And I did go back and I pulled up a Fox News poll to make sure that we are always providing information from both sides. And this poll shows President Trump stands at a 44% approval and a 55% disapproval in the latest Fox News national poll. Once again, pollings are tough. There's a margin of error.
Polled by Fox, or was it another outside polling, and that they're just reporting?
This one says Fox News. This was a Fox News.
Let's go to the phones again. Joseph is from Tomball. Joseph, welcome to Hello Houston.
Yes, hello, and thank you for the great show that you guys had.
Oh, bless your heart. What's on your mind?
I am worried about the hurricane season that is coming up on us. We already know that this climate is crazy, and our president is deporting like crazy all these people who do the construction, highway, landscaping, and on and on. So we're going to see what's going to happen in November with all these storms hit us, and who's going to fix those houses and landscaping.
You're right.
Joseph, thank you for your call. Frank, interesting quick question, though. All that you're seeing in cuts to agencies and such, how will it, from where you sit, affect our community? if we have a strong hurricane season.
Well, you've got to reconstruct. You've got to have. Remember when there was that huge? It was from China, dry board and sheetrock. We couldn't get any. It was that all comes from China. So if you have a lot of destruction and you need a lot of lumber and you need a lot of sheetrock and you need a lot of nails, where are we going to get them? Nails are made out of aluminum and steel even. I'm not a builder, but it'd be interesting to get a builder's take on that because obviously a hurricane does a lot of destruction to current property that you can rebuild. But if you need to completely remodel a structure, where's all that going to come from?
Right. It brings up a good point. I wanted you to say that too, because oftentimes people think to themselves, we are a local show. We are Hello Houston, focused on the Houston region. We spend a lot of time talking about federal policy and federal issues, national issues. But it's because they do impact us. You cut FEMA, that could be a problem. You cut forecasting, National Weather Services, that can be a problem. You have tariffs on goods that you need in our community. It impacts us right here. National is local.
And are we ordering the things we're going to need to fix things up? Or are we saying, no, I'm not going to order these now because of the tariffs? So many of the, I've heard, Kevin and I were talking about this morning, that these freighters are half full coming from China. Half full. And we're only a month into this trade war.
Well, we're going to find out more. We've got a lot more to talk about. We're always interested in what you have to say. Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll talk to former Judge, U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, Thomas Griffith, to discuss the relationship between the judiciary and executive branches. And as always, we're taking your calls on any of today's topics at 713-440-8870. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Today is New Member Monday. Embark on an exciting journey by becoming a new member of Houston Public Media. Kickstart your week with a commitment to supporting reliable news, educational documentaries, and captivating arts. Select a contribution level that suits you and in return enjoy exclusive access to our streaming service on the PBS app. Your donation at HoustonPublicMedia.org not only grants you these benefits, but also contributes to our mission of informing, educating, and inspiring Houston. Become a new member today.
Support comes from Blake Hillegeist Real Estate, independent commercial and residential real estate broker with over 30 years experience guiding clients through economic downturns, realty challenges, and everyday life situations. More at BlakeSellsHouston.com. Support comes from John Moore, helping with plumbing, electrical, and air conditioning repairs, including out-of-warranty units since 1965. Details at 730-2525 or at johnmooreservices.com.
Support comes from Cypress Creek Face, presenting Michael Cavanaugh in his singer-songwriter series, Saturday, May 17th, with hits from James Taylor, Paul Simon, and Billy Joel. Tickets at cypresscreekface.org.
Support comes from the Houston Zoo, presenting its annual Feast with the Beasts. Cuisine from a number of Houston's diverse eateries, animal experiences, live music, and more. May 2nd. More at houstonzoo.org.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from St. Luke's Health and the St. Luke's Foundation, supporting clinical excellence, compassionate care, and a healthier future for all. More at supportstlukes.org.
Support comes from GenPro, a Houston-based home generator service providing power to homes during unexpected outages, helping with connectivity and productivity. More information is available at genpro.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. Join the conversation. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
In recent months, federal judges have pushed back on the actions and policies of President Trump, which has led to tension between the executive and judicial branches of government. With us now to share his thoughts on the dangers of toxic polarization is Judge Thomas B. Griffith, formerly a judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, currently with Hutton Andrews Kurth Law Firm in Washington, D.C., and a lecturer on law at Harvard and a fellow at the Whitley Institute at Brigham Young University. Judge, quite a bunch of titles there. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. I guess our first
Thank
question.
you. It's good to be here.
Oh, good.
I guess our first question then, Celeste, you wanted to take this?
Yes. So, Judge Griffith, what role, just so we can understand when we go into this, what role does the federal judiciary play in upholding constitutional law when contempt is being used in place of reason and civil argument?
That's a big question, big topic at this moment. From the earliest days of our republic, we've decided that the courts will play the primary role in determining what the law means. Congress makes the laws, the executive branch carries out the laws. It's the courts that end up deciding what the laws mean and what people can do within the law and what they do that's against the law. So that's a distinctive role the courts have played. I think what we're seeing right now is that the courts are playing the role that they're supposed to play. We have a very active executive branch that's taking very aggressive views to the law. I'm sorry, we have a problem here.
No, keep going. Sorry, there's a slight delay in this, but we can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm actually calling in from a remote location, so not a secure location, but hopefully the internet will hold up for us here. But no, in my view, what we're seeing playing out with courts is exactly what's supposed to happen. You have strong and passionate arguments about the role of the president, what he can do, what he can't do, and they're being determined. They're being played out in courts where reasoned disagreement, reasoned argument reigns. In fact, I think the courts provide something of a role model for how the rest of us ought to be engaged in our political discourse. We have passionate disagreements. That's good. We're Americans. We disagree about things. That's really good. But we need to do it in a way that shows respect for the people with whom we disagree, and that we bring reasoned argument and not just contemptuous attacks. Well, sir, that's what's happening in the courts right now.
Sir, this is Frank Billingsley. You're absolutely right. But what recourse is there when a judge's order to turn the planes around is ignored, and when the Supreme Court 9-0 order to facilitate the return of one of those deported is ignored? That message to America as a whole is frightening.
Well, I want to be careful here because that's one characterization of what's taken place, but that's a contested view, right?
Right.
There's an argument about what does the word facilitate mean, right? And the Trump administration has taken one view of what it means to facilitate. Others have taken another view. That's going to play out in the courts. We're going to see what does that language mean in the courts. And so that story isn't finished yet, right? We're midway through it. We're midway through that process. Let's wait and see how this particular controversy plays out to see what that happens.
Judge, let me ask you this then, in staying with what you're talking about and get more philosophical about it. What fascinates me is that the Supreme Court can issue a ruling, a decision, and it seems like then they throw it back to us to interpret what they've said in case of a word like facilitate. There doesn't seem to be a back and forth, and I'm sure that's there to preserve the authority of the judge, of the bench, but shouldn't there be some way to have a more casual way of coming back and saying, you use the word facilitate, is there a better definition you can give us? Am I misunderstanding how that works?
No, I don't think you're misunderstanding at all. In the case you're talking about, this is the deportation of the alleged Venezuelan gang members, and particularly Mr. Garcia. Mm-hmm. And the Supreme Court ordered the Trump administration to facilitate his return, and then sent it down to the trial court, the court that had the case in front of it, to say, okay, carry this out. And now there's an argument about, well, what does that mean, facilitate? Right. That may be a case where the Supreme Court maybe was a little too vague in its language. But what I want to point out is maybe it's a frustrating process, but it's actually a pretty good process. It's now we're now going to find out what they meant by
But can the lower court simply request clarification from the Supreme Court without it having to go through an appeal process that goes back up to the court?
No, that's typically not how it's done.
Right. Why?
That's typically not how it's done. So, because there are lots of reasons for why a lower court can't ask the court above it for guidance apart from deciding the case itself. But that's the system that
we seem to have a bad connection. We're going to go ahead and let Judge Griffith go, and we're going to get him back on a phone line so we can continue this conversation.
I think it's a fascinating conversation.
It's very interesting.
Yes, if you'll call us back on a phone, we'll get a better
Yes.
line going with you. If you don't mind, the Zoom call is a little echoey over here.
Yeah, our Zoom call, our connection seems to be, we have a bad connection. So we're going to get you on the phone, Judge Griffith, and
I mean,
yes,
I know he can't. There's some things that he's not in a position to talk about. But there was this case in Wisconsin where a judge was arrested in this whole case, and the takeaway from it is ICE is apparently going after people where they know they won't be armed, because no one's going to take a gun to court. So if you want to arrest someone, arrest them at court. No one's going to take a gun to a playground, hopefully. So if you want to arrest them when they're there to pick up their son. So there's this idea that anyone who is an immigrant may stop going to court when they're ordered to. I'm not going. I can't take a gun. I don't know what is going to happen to me. So the whole judicial process could really be dampened because people are afraid that they're going to be taken.
Yeah, I think we need to find some clarity in understanding the separation of the branches of government. And as the judge, I think, was saying, it was a little hard because it was in and out there, is that's how this system is playing out right now. There are challenges, as there should be, and there are judges hearing these cases, and they're redefining and correcting. And I don't mean to be putting words in the judge's mouth, but that's how the process was set up. If there's a problem, you take it through the courts. The issue I think we have looking at it is that it seems as though once the orders come forth from the judiciary, they're not being followed as they should be. But then again, that gives the opportunity for it to go back to court to see, is this the way it should proceed or not? Who should be doing what?
And there's a lot of question around the executive branch and how the executive branch plays into the judiciary branch.
If they ignore it.
That is what I think is very concerning for a lot of people when we're looking at our democracy, is the overreach of the executive branch and potentially calling for the impeachment of judges, and looking at that, relationship, and how if you have an executive order that's saying, I'm going to plow through, and if you come after me, I'm going to go after you, it can be very contentious.
That's a constitutional crisis. When people don't play by the rules, and the rules are pretty simple. You make the laws, you enforce the laws, we interpret the laws. And if one of those branches takes over and says, I'm not going to play with you in this sandbox, I'm going to do what I want to do, you have a constitutional crisis.
Right. And we've seen this happening over and over and over since President Trump has taken his position as in his second term, where we are looking at the reaching into reshaping of many of in our everyday lives, in our education. And again, it's one of those things where a lot of people are concerned with, can our democracy withhold some of these major hacks to our Constitution?
It seems like
interpretations of our Constitution.
An interpretation of a word. I mean, to your point, if facilitate didn't get the job done, then what the heck did you mean? Just let's revisit this and tell us in broader, more specific language, broader and more specific at the same time. What did you mean by facilitate? Are we supposed to go down there and get this guy and bring him back, or what?
Well, and I think it kind of, not to make this correlation, but as it is with religion, you have the words that are written in the Bible, and for thousands of years, 2,000 years, people have been interpreting what it actually means. We shouldn't have to do that. We have the judges sitting right there.
Well,
they say the word facilitate. If there is a lack of clarity on it, Why can't we just turn to them?
Well, let's return to him. Judge Thomas Griffith, formerly a judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, is back with us on the phone. And, sir, you were talking about basically everybody doing their job.
Judge, can you hear us?
That's right.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
I can hear you.
And we were just saying when we were waiting for you to call in, if people that are in the legislative, judicial, and executive branches don't do what they're supposed to do, we have a constitutional crisis.
Well, that phrase "constitutional crisis" is used an awful lot.
Especially by me.
I shy away from using it in most instances, but and I don't think we're in a constitutional crisis right now. I think the system is playing out just as it was designed to play out, and I know it's hard for all of us to sort of be patient and let the courts do their work. But I have a great deal of confidence in the federal judiciary, and I have a great deal of confidence that they are not partisans. These aren't issues of whether they're for Trump or against him. They're wrestling with difficult legal issues and trying to come up with the best resolutions to this. Which I think is why I was hearing you. Which I think is why when people say the court is somehow illegitimate, or that you have a judicial insurrection going on, or a judicial coup. First of all, that's inaccurate. That's not what's going on. And second, it does great damage to the Constitution because it diminishes the public's faith in what is actually happening in front of the federal courts, and that is tough issues are being litigated and being resolved by judges who are doing their best to get the right answer, regardless of whether it helps President Trump or hinders him. I got to tell you, from my experience in the federal courts, that is not how judges think. And hopefully that's not how they act. And most of the time they don't. Every once in a while somebody slips up.
Well, sir, due process is not difficult to understand. If anything, most Americans understand that explicitly, and they know when it's not happening.
Yeah, and the Supreme Court in the last couple of weeks, has unanimously said that due process has to be afforded in these cases.
It's the mainstay. Remarkable. It's the mainstay of our democracy. If you even if you just get pulled off the street, you still have a right to go before a judge and make your case.
That's right. That's kind of fundamental. And again, this court, Roberts Court, 9-0 on two occasions to send. So I think we're in shape there.
Judge, let me ask this. Just kind of curious, in the grander scheme of things, when a decision comes down from a higher court, and especially at this level, and it is ignored, without the judiciary branch having any sort of an enforcement group to go out and enforce their rulings, what happens if it's just decided to ignore what the judiciary says?
Yeah, what then?
Well, that's when you have a constitutional crisis.
Let's not throw that term
around. That's why
we
use the phrase constitutional crisis. But I do want to push back a little bit on the suggestion that that's what's happening right now. I don't think we're there yet.
Right.
There's been some creative lawyering, shall we use that phrase to be generous, creative lawyering. But look, the president has said repeatedly, I'll obey the Supreme Court. I'll obey the Supreme Court. So,
but I guess my question is, what are the gears that get the levers that get pulled if, in fact, we get to a point where decisions aren't being followed? How does the judiciary enforce it then? I'm just curious from a civics class point of view.
Yeah. So the only mechanism, in this case, there are two mechanisms that it has, but one of them is a dead letter. One is the impeachment clause, right? And this is what the framers had in mind. If you had an executive that was just disregarding the law, the framers said, well, we've got this great, impeachment provision, but that's been rendered a dead letter in the last 20 years or so. That's not a viable option. The other one is to hold the executive branch in contempt of court. But here's the problem there. To enforce that, you have to have a prosecution. The prosecution is done by government lawyers.
And he has appointed them.
It's hard to imagine it's difficult to imagine a situation in which a Justice Department would be willing to prosecute the President of the United States for contempt, or members of the executive branch for contempt.
So what you're saying is there's no answer. There is no recourse.
That's why I call it a constitutional crisis, right?
So if we get to that point,
so we circle back to what I said originally. But
before we say the sky is falling,
right?
We don't have any instances of this ever happening, right? I mean, when Nixon lost the White House tapes case, what did he do? He turned over the tapes, right? When George W. Bush lost the Guantanamo Bay cases, what did he do? He followed what they said, even though he disagreed with it. When Vice President Gore was ruled the loser in Bush v. Gore, what did he do? He went along with it. There's a great tradition in America that no, you do follow the courts, and I'm counting on that to happen. My personal view is there's a lot of political bluster that's going on around this issue, but that when the tire meets the road. Again, the president has said, "I'm going to obey the court." Well, let's keep our fingers crossed and
let's hope that he doesn't blame it on Bucali and say, "Well, President Bucali won't let this guy go, so there's nothing I can do about it." Because we gave these people $6 million to take our deportees. We can certainly say, "Give us our money back if you're not going to do what we say."
Judge Griffith, are you there?
I'm here. I'm there.
Yes.
When we get to that issue, there are limitations on what the judiciary can do with respect to what takes place in a foreign country and foreign policy. That's a tougher issue than some people are willing to make it. But let's see. I'm as interested as anyone to see what did the Supreme Court mean when they said the Trump administration has to facilitate the return.
And by the way, they've said you have full immunity. So it will be interesting. You're absolutely right to see what they say after giving this president full immunity.
Judge, please.
Full immunity for core presidential actions, but not full immunity beyond that.
Okay.
Judge, I often say I hope I live long enough to read all the definitive books written about the periods we're living in. Thank you very much, Judge.
Thank you.
Judge Thomas Griffith is formerly a judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, currently with Hunton Law Firm, a lecturer on law at Harvard, and a fellow at the Wheatley Institute at Brigham Young University. Coming up, we discuss why a recent survey found that more women are exploring a sober lifestyle with Dr. Mandy Neeble Diamond. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
President Trump's first 100 days in office is marked by relentless headlines.
But there's still a great deal of uncertainty.
Very stressed about the economy. I think it's my number one stressor.
The most disconcerting thing for me is that there's no way to figure out what's going on.
I'm Vicki Gonzalez in Sacramento.
And I'm David Brown in Austin. To understand this moment in history, we're talking with two sides of the country.
It's a special collaboration between the Texas Standard and the California Newsroom. 100 Days, Two Americas.
You can hear it tomorrow at 10 a.m.
Houston Public Media brings to you PBS World, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on TV 8.6. Experience the personal connection behind the headlines with programming devoted to telling stories that humanize complex issues. PBS World helps us understand the movements, conflicts, and cultures that connect us all. PBS World on TV 8.6 and online at HoustonPublicMedia.org.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Certa Pro Painters, offering residential and commercial painting services, from color consultations to full project management. Estimates and more at CertaPro.com.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Houston Community College's Health Sciences program, with facilities all over Houston for real-world learning. Sign up information and more at hccs.edu.
Support comes from the Houston Symphony, performing Ravel's Bolero. Plus, Venezuelan trumpet virtuoso Paco Flores performs 2 concertos written especially for him, May 9th through 11th at Jones Hall. Tickets at houstonsymphony.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. Join the conversation. Call now, 713-440-8870, or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Welcome back to Hello Houston. Over the past years, there's been a lot more conversation around being sober curious, especially with younger generations like Gen Zers, who for the most part are much more conscious of healthier lifestyle habits. And recently, a national survey by SoberSafe conducted by Census Wide revealed new information about the relationship between middle-aged women and alcohol. The data found that 30% of women ages between 40 to 65 are embracing sober curiosity, while 45% had expressed dependency concerns. Joining us now to tell us more is Dr. Mandy Neeble Diamond, a licensed clinical forensic psychologist. Dr. Diamond, welcome to Hello Houston.
Thank you
Hello.
for having me. Nice to meet you all.
So why don't we just start with help us understand sober curious and the difference between that versus perhaps mindful drinking or just going cold turkey, flat out. I'm not drinking another drink forever.
I think that with sober curiosity, it's the aspect of not identifying for yourself if you have a drinking problem. It's looking at what is this like sober lifestyle? I mean, we hear all the time when it hits January, so many people go into like 30 days of no drinking through January, that now a lot of women are just starting to look at what is sober curiosity, extending that for a longer period of time, seeing what it's meant to be and how they feel during that process.
It's interesting to me, the language behind it almost seems to imply everyone drinks. That's the standard where you start. Now we're curious about not drinking, when it used to be people didn't drink and we were curious about drinking. Talk about that shift.
Absolutely. I mean, just when we saw the survey results and the statistics, I mean, the one that kind of blew me away is that middle-aged women are actually reporting now that the majority of them drink more at this stage in their life than they did in their 20s. And so that is, when you look at 20-year-olds, where that's kind of the lifestyle, that's what you expect from that age group, that it's actually the middle-aged women are drinking more now than they did in their 20s. I think that statistic alone is starting to kind of get people talking about sober curiosity.
Now, what about people who say you are either sober or you're not? There is no middle ground.
I honestly don't agree with that. And I mean, I know that there's a lot of people that are in the AA community that will say it's abstinence-based or nothing. But I think that's looking at those that have identified for themselves that they have an alcohol dependency problem. They've identified that they're alcoholics. The majority of people look at it kind of differently. And I don't think that it is either you're completely sober or you're not, when the sober curiosity is looking for one's own point of view with their drinking behaviors and kind of what they're wanting at that point in time in their life.
Have you done any looking into if a woman becomes sober curious, shouldn't she discuss this with her partner before she becomes sober curious, and maybe he doesn't or she doesn't? I mean it shouldn't be a one-way street. This should be a couple's agreement.
What if they don't have a partner?
Well, if they don't, they don't. I mean, they might want to discuss it with their family. I mean, I've been around people who say, well, who try to push it on you anyway and say, I understand you're sober curious, but look, I bought this Chateauneuf de Pop, and you've got to have at least one glass of wine. I mean, where we can all for ourselves decide this, but socially, I stopped drinking for a whole year. So and this was in 2011, mainly to see if I could. Well, let me tell you, people don't like it when you quit drinking. They're like, why? Why are you okay? Are you in a program? What's going on? Why aren't you drinking? So what do you say to that when that comes up?
I mean, a lot of times with my own patients, I do encourage them to have this talk with their partner. I mean, if they're single, it doesn't matter. They're only telling kind of their friends, hey, I'm not drinking.
But friends can be the worst. Friends can be the worst.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, well,
Absolutely.
Mary's not drinking anymore. I guess she's better than the rest of us.
I mean, I think the peer pressure piece extends to all ages, but my patients, I do encourage them to talk with their partner about it and just say, look, this is where I'm at right now. I'm not planning on drinking during this period of time. If you want to, go ahead. But when we go out, I'm going to be ordering mocktails or I'm going to get something else. And it's just that working with your partner instead of kind of excluding them during the journey.
I want to go back to the increase in drinking in this group we're talking about and across the board probably. And I'm curious, which came first, do you think? The cultural presentation of everybody drinking. I think of that TV show where all the women got together and had wine every day, and it became that kind of cultural thing that we see. Did that move us more towards saying this is how we socialize, or were we socializing and then the media picked up and started presenting it that way? Where are we on this?
I think it was there, and then I think the media kind of picked up on it, started just kind of making it more well known. But I definitely think the behaviors for socializing have been there kind of since the beginning.
I also want to say COVID. We understand
Right.
COVID. We saw trends of people drinking much more from home.
There's nothing else to do.
But I'm thinking back to like the TV show Cougar Town or whatever that was called, where it was like the whole concept was you got together and you drank. And the more you saw that, the more I see it constantly being reflected in the media, which makes me think I'm not a drinker. I don't have a problem with drinking. I don't not ever drink, but that's not like what my go-to. I would never think go home from work and have a drink. But you watch all this and you think, what have I been missing out on? Maybe that's how you have even more fun in life. And I'm just curious that impact that it has. We often say violence in video games doesn't truly lead to more violence in communities, but does the glorification of enjoying consistent drinking actually aid in encouraging people?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at any show, there's drinking almost on every sitcom. If you look at every commercial, you're guaranteed to see 1 to 2 alcoholic beverages that's being presented during the time of like the show, during the commercial breaks.
Right.
I think it's extremely glamorized. I mean, I have 18-year-old twins, and my daughter just randomly said one time, like, oh, women that have the glass of wine just look so classy. Like, I would like to have that when I got older. And I was like, oh my God. But that's how it's presented, is that it's so glamorous, and that's what you do with your friends. And when you go out on dates, or kind of when you're at a social engagement, even sports. I mean, it's huge. It's very much, I think, glamorized in today's society. But I also think now this sober curiosity piece is starting to become glamorized, and we're seeing more of, non-alcoholic beverages being presented as well as an option.
Let me ask if you've heard this, because some of my friends that are on Ozempic have actually lost their interest in alcohol. Just like you lose your interest in food. The brain, the dough, whatever the release is, has said, you know what, I can do without wine tonight. Have you studied that at all?
I have not studied that, but I have multiple patients that are on Ozempic or Wegovy or any of the other ones, and every one of them has reported that.
Yeah.
I've had every kind of patient say, oh, the one thing I've noticed is I don't crave it, or I don't want it, or it just tastes different. So I think that's definitely had a
and your
huge
sugar
impact.
goes down because you don't drink the wine.
Dr. Neeble Diamond, I have a quick question about what are the benefits of being sober curious? If somebody says, I don't actually think I have a problem, but, every once in a while I may drink a little too much, or I want to pull back. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of the benefits of sober curiosity?
I mean, I think just the way that you feel. I mean, in the survey, it showed how many women were reporting that when they drink, they had disrupted sleep and the stress levels. It increased anxiety and depression for them, memory concerns, like digestive health. So I think that a lot of times when women are getting to the point that they're sober curious, they're starting to notice their anxiety is less, their depression's less, their memory, they seem more kind of on point. They're less stressed, which a lot of women actually drink to manage stress. Now they're starting to recognize, wait, I'm actually less stressed. I have more energy. So I think those are a lot of the benefits we're seeing right now.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Mandy Neeble Diamond is a senior clinical advisor at Sober Safe and a licensed clinical forensic psychologist. Thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Thank you.
And coming up on Hello Houston, we'll discuss student loan forgiveness with the president and founder of the Institute of Student Loan Advisors, and we'll chat with Vanessa Richardson and check out how our Houston Rockets are doing. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Stay tuned. There's more Hello Houston on the way with Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
This is News 88.7 KUHF, Houston. News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston. It's 12 o'clock.
Just ahead on this hour of Hello Houston, we continue diving into the top stories of the day, such as driverless trucks soon to be driving along I-45 between Houston and Dallas in the coming days. I'm Frank Billingsley.
And I'm Celeste Diaz-Sherman. Then we will talk to the president and founder of the Institute of Student Loan Advisors about student loan forgiveness and President Trump's new collection plan.
And I'm Ernie Manous. Plus, we'll also chat with Space City Network's Rockets reporter, Vanessa Richardson, about tonight's big playoff game with the Golden State Warriors.
Also, we want to know your thoughts, so give us a call at 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@HelloHouston. You can also watch us on our YouTube channel. Just go to hellohouston.org and click the big orange banner.
Hello Houston is made possible in part by founding sponsors John Bradshaw and Kathy Sanders, and by gifts from listeners like you.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. As President Trump's 100th day in office approaches, his White House is emphasizing his actions to combat illegal immigration in the U.S. NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben reports today the White House said state and local law enforcement will be a key part of deportations moving forward.
At a briefing, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt addressed last week's Immigration and Customs Enforcement operation in Florida, Operation Tidal Wave. She said it resulted in the arrests of nearly 800 people in the U.S. illegally.
Operation Tidal Wave is a preview of what is to come around this country. Large-scale operations that employ our state and local enforcement partners to get criminal illegal aliens off our streets.
Today, Trump is expected to sign 2 executive actions related to border security, including one that will target sanctuary cities, jurisdictions with laws that limit cooperation with immigration authorities. Danielle Kurtzleben, NPR News, the White House.
The president says Ukraine is open to giving up rights to the Black Sea Peninsula of Crimea, which Russia illegally annexed in 2014. But as NPR's Joanna Kissis tells us, Ukraine's leader, Volodymyr Zelensky, has made clear he will not concede the region in exchange for a quick peace deal pushed by the Trump administration.
Russia seized Crimea 11 years ago and then armed and assisted Kremlin-allied separatists in occupying parts of eastern Ukraine. Ukraine cannot legally recognize a Russian takeover without changing its constitution, which requires a referendum. Zelensky has said repeatedly that he will not recognize an occupied territory as part of Russia. Artem Chigoz, a member of Ukraine's parliament, is a Crimean Tatar, the indigenous people of Crimea. He told NPR that Russians persecute Crimean Tatars. President Trump and his team cannot ignore international law, he said. He cannot ignore the indigenous Crimean people. Joanna Kakissis, NPR News, Kyiv.
Millions of people in Spain and Portugal are facing disruptions from a massive power failure across the peninsula. The outage has severely affected transport and communication systems. The BBC's Danny Eberhard has more.
The operators of the electric networks are starting to restore power in some areas. So, for example, in Spain, they're saying that power is starting to be restored to parts of the north and the south In southwest France, they say that the interruptions have stopped. Andorra was a brief disruption. So already there are plans to put these back into place. But the network operator in Spain is talking about 6 to 10 hours before services are resumed. And of course, at the moment, we do not know why this happened.
The BBC's Danny Eberhard. It's NPR News.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Gabrielle Dawkins. More than 18,000 people waiting for Housing Choice vouchers will need to take action in May or face removal from the Houston Housing Authority's wait list. Kenneth Coles, who oversees the voucher program, says applicants will receive an email with instructions on how to access a new online portal.
May 1st is big for us, and people need to just be aware of the 3 words, which is register, update, and apply.
About 19,000 low-income households are currently served by the voucher program, which typically covers between 60 to 70% of rent. And last year, Stafford City Council voted down a measure that would have put property taxes on the ballot. The city hasn't had one in 30 years, but ran a $1.7 million deficit in its most recent budget. From the Fort Bend County Bureau, News 88.7's Natalie Weber tells us how city leaders are looking to make up the difference.
Stafford could reallocate some of its economic development funds to pay for infrastructure, public safety, and other city services. Economic development is funded through sales tax money. One city council member says some of these sales taxes could be diverted from economic development and used to pay for city services. This is council member Virginia Rosas.
At this point, we need to come up with viable ideas that actually is going to bring some revenue in.
City Council plans to discuss the measure in May. It would need to go to voters before it could go into effect. From the Fort Bend County Bureau, I'm Natalie Weber, News 88.7.
In sports, the Astros lost 2 out of 3 games this weekend to the Kansas City Royals. They didn't score a run in each of the first 2 games of the series, but exploded for 7 runs in yesterday's win. Houston will start a 3-game series against the Tigers tonight. First pitch will be at 7:10. Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Gabrielle Dawkins.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include BetterHelp, committed to supporting mental health through therapy and helping clients find balance. Clients are matched with one of 30,000 therapists for online therapy from anywhere at betterhelp.com/public.
From Houston Public Media and News 88.7, it's Hello Houston, an open forum on today's biggest stories affecting Houston and beyond. Call now, 713-440-8870, or let us know your thoughts on today's topics by emailing us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's your host for Hello Houston, Ernie Manous, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
I always try and figure out when's the right point to jump in on that music and when's to let all of you enjoy the music for a moment. A little piece in all of our chit-chatting. You know, if you want to even have more craziness in your life, you can watch us live on YouTube. Just go to the Houston Public Media channel on youtube.com. Or even easier, go to hellohouston.org and there's a link. Just click the big orange bar and you get there. And as Celeste always likes to say, you know, there's a whole other world going on YouTube during our show.
Yeah. There is. There's a whole community and people are chatting. And let's see, Najim Amzal says, hello there. It is nice to put faces to the voices that I listen to every day. Hello, Najim. Najim also commented, he said, on the topic we were just talking about earlier, the segment about being sober curious. He says, I am a Muslim and I don't drink. I don't see why I have to drink to have fun or socialize, which I think a lot of people.
That's me.
Yeah, that's Ernie.
Right.
Ernie's just fun, sober.
I'm just fun. If I drink, I'm really weird because I have to make sure I'm not doing anything the next day. Not that I really even get a hangover. I just always think it's gonna throw me off. So like it takes a lot to find a day where I can have a drink so that I can feel safe the next. I don't know why. I'm neurotic.
You know what it is? I definitely think that as I've gotten older, I feel like I definitely have to. if I'm going to have one, I'm going to be a little more tired the next day. Like a glass of wine will definitely impact me the next day.
I have a Godiva white chocolate liqueur in my refrigerator. I know you don't have to refrigerate. And I look at it all the time. And like Art Car, I'll make my coffee and put a little in it before I go to Art Car. That's Ernie's wild, crazy, lost weekend.
On the other hand, there's this whole.
On the other hand, there's Frank.
There's this whole venues of mixology, where people pride themselves in how to make this drink or that drink. So we enjoy like pretending that we know what we're doing in that regard. So it's kind of fun, but. Yeah, but for 42 years I worked. I didn't drink Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday. Friday. I would drink Friday night when I got home. And then I would drink on Saturday.
And we want to be sensitive to those who are in recovery or do not drink. We absolutely think that is important and a lifestyle.
And I have a lot of friends like that. And those mocktails she mentioned, there are a lot of good mocktails out there.
I'd rather just have a soda.
Well, if you're out for the taste and you want to look like you're having a drink and you don't want that peer
I am out
pressure.
for the taste. I think that actually cocktails don't taste good.
Depends on who's making them.
I just don't. I don't know. Anyway, there's so much more we have to talk about. That was from our last hour. We got a whole new full hour full of thoughts and comments and conversation starters. We'd like you to be part of it. 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Coming up this hour, we're going to talk about student loan forgiveness and what's happening on the federal level when it comes to each of us that may have a student loan. We'll be talking about that. But as always, Celeste, start us off with a new topic.
Yes, if you are planning on driving to Dallas anytime soon, you might want to listen up. There will be a 200-mile stretch off of I-45 between Houston and Dallas where you could see, wait for it, driverless semi-trucks. Pittsburgh-based company Aurora Innovation is launching a driverless operations this month on a popular freight route between Houston and Dallas. The plan is to start right here in Texas, which is known for its vital freight corridors, favorable regulatory policies, and, well, good weather. So we want to hear what you think and what you're feeling about driverless trucks going down I-45. Does this sound like a good idea? Give us a call, 713-440-8870.
Okay, here we go. This is going to make me sound so... I don't trust machines. Machines scare me for the most part. Driverless trucks, how many things have we seen go wrong because someone didn't do what they were supposed to fine-tune, to tighten that screw, to do this? That's why I'll never go in a helicopter, because I don't... A plane, I figure it can glide some. A helicopter drops. Trucks driving with freight down the highway with no one in it? I'm scared.
Well, autonomous trucking companies have been testing their fleets on Texas highways for several years now, Arnie. This is not new, but obviously with backup safety drivers in the cab that are
and now
still
they're going to do it
there.
with nobody in the cab.
And now they're going to try it officially with zero.
Give me the bullet train.
Okay, and this is coming in the next few days.
Yes, it's going to be happening
this
month.
is not
right.
like, in the future. This is like this week.
Now.
So here's, do you ever drive to Dallas?
Yes, I mean, rarely.
Okay, let me ask you this. These are driverless trucks. They presumably have to go the speed limit.
Right.
Who goes the speed limit between here and Dallas?
Well, I sure hope
these
drivers.
Most people, because it's the speed limit.
Stop it. The speed limit does go to 75 in parts, but even then, I pump it up to 80,
but
85. I'll be honest.
If the machine is working...
I'm not done with my thought.
Okay,
if your machine is working and it's going 75 miles an hour and everybody behind it can't get past it, it's going to cause a real traffic issue. And if you have two trucks that happen to line up by each other by accident, and they're both going the exact speed limit, this is going to be a big problem.
Well, it's not going to be. It's not going to be a problem because it will be on its own in its own lane.
Well, wait.
So they are going to be designating a lane to these trucks.
Okay, so that won't happen. Parallel won't happen.
So parallel will not happen.
One behind the other. You could have bunches and bunches of trucks all going 65 miles an hour while everybody else is trying to go 68. I'm telling you, this is going to be really interesting to watch the traffic.
And I'm going to flip it to the side. It may actually, if the machine is working, safer, because we often hear the stories of these long-haul drivers who have been up so many hours.
Safer.
And so maybe this is a good thing.
I think safer. I think you're right. I think the backup of traffic. There were when you may not remember this, but there was a time when we were saving energy, and so the speed limit was cut to 55 for all across the nation. And to protest, people would get on the freeways and line up and go 55. And the traffic jams that were caused by that were tremendous.
My issue with this is that this will basically take the spot of an actual truck driver who depends and needs this work.
But don't they have shortages of truck drivers?
And so, I mean, I don't know
I
the
always
shortages
see,
of truck
I always
drivers.
see the
However, I
ads.
do know.
No, I hear the ads. Want to be a truck driver? We pay $48 an hour and whatever.
Oh, wait, they do?
Maybe more.
What's that
Maybe
number?
More.
It may be
I'm
interesting.
kind of making that part up, but they pay pretty well.
What do you think? Are you worried about this? Are you excited about it? Do you think it's going to lose a job?
One more thought.
All right, hold on.
Oh, it could go hybrid, where I'm the truck driver, but I can't sleep. I have to take breaks. But maybe I could put my automatic and sleep. I mean, they do that in Teslas now. Maybe you just
that scares me.
Be a hybrid, or I can't work because I'm sick, but my truck can drive itself, and I'll still get paid.
Well, my thought also to this is, do y'all remember when Teslas first started? I think it was Volvo, actually, that had a driverless car, and their YouTube went viral because they were videoing it. And this was so exciting. And a person walked in front of
Oops.
We're horrible people. 713-440-8870. What are your thoughts on all this? Well, actually, Hector does have a thought on it. He's calling us from Missouri City. Hello, Hector. What's on your mind?
Hey, how you guys doing? I like your show.
Thanks,
Hector. And I gotta tell you, I trained drivers for 30 years on ready-mix concrete trucks. And trucks, I gotta tell you, have no brain.
Yeah.
They should break down between here and Dallas. Oh, no.
Very good point.
That's a great point.
No. You'd have traffic backed up for miles.
Oh,
and,
good point.
I don't know who thought about this, but it's not common sense.
Yeah, that goes back to my not trusting machines.
I love it when we get calls from experts. Thank you, Hector.
Yeah, thanks, Hector, for calling. That's an excellent point.
If you have a thought on this and want to share it with us, thank you, Hector. Give us a call, 713-440-8870. Okay, I'm going to move on to a kind of a dark story here, but really brings up some very good social issues here.
Does.
A Jefferson County, Missouri man is charged with first-degree murder and armed criminal action in the death of his wife. He is accused of shooting and killing his wife in their home. He told police his wife was suffering from mental health conditions over the last few days, and he became exhausted while attempting to care for her. According to the court documents, he gave the location of the firearm used in the shooting to the deputies on the scene. He told police he did not want his wife to die in a nursing home and opted to take her life instead. He said he wanted his wife's death to be humane, using a specific cartridge in the firearm. He also said he chose the shot placement to kill his wife as quickly as possible.
This is really heavy. So if you're listening, please know that this is a heavy topic that we are talking about.
It's gruesome.
I just want to let you know, we're curious your thoughts on this, 713-440-8870. For me, the reason this story fascinates me is really it's talking about healthcare in our country today, I think, on a lot of the level. It's when you are faced with these decisions and you cannot find help or resources to take care of someone who's, and I probably talk about this more because of my own situation, caring for my mom and the challenges you face every day. But it's like, I can see the struggle in this man. If you put your wife somewhere where you think she's not going to get care, it's going to be a difficult life. But you can't condone this kind of behavior. In the same time, it's very difficult.
Well, the question also becomes, was there some type of consent from the wife?
Right.
And was she in a place where she could consent to this?
Yes.
We don't know enough about the mental health condition, to be honest. Because there are some nursing homes that won't take people if they show any violence. They'll say, sorry, we're not taking you. So
and
then you're faced with that.
The cost on top of it.
Yeah.
You know?
And no break. If you're the sole caregiver and never get a break, then that's going to wear on you.
There are certain states where they will assist with this type of
assisted suicide, but you are the person that is being suicided. You have to agree to it and have done the documentation and then have assisted suicide. That's the issue around that. This one, it is someone who was put down, basically, as you would a sick animal.
Well, he may have thought it through to say, I'm going to go to prison, but they have 3 squares a day and a place to sleep. Yeah. And that may be a better life for him than what he was going through, which is sad in its own way. But nobody has a right to be judge, jury, and executioner of their spouse, period.
Right.
I mean, that's totally disagreeable. But to your point, we have healthcare issues in this country.
You face these. What are your alternatives? You know?
Yeah, there was an interesting story a few years ago in the New York Times Magazine. A woman, a very smart, she was a doctor, and she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. She started collecting pills for suicide. She told her family, I trust you. Tell me when I've gone over the line and my time has come. And they did. And she went upstairs and she took all the pills and she passed. And it was her decision from the very beginning. She took the pills. But you can Google it. It's a very interesting story.
And we want to remind you all that we are talking about something very sensitive right now. And if you have thoughts on these topics, you can give us a call at 713-440-8870.
In fact, Yaya from Angleton is on the line about this. Welcome, Yaya.
How are y'all?
Good, thank you. What's on your mind?
Listen, man, this guy can tell the police whatever about how bad his wife was acting like, but we're never going to know what his wife wanted.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Obviously, she doesn't have any say in it because he took it upon himself to do whatever to her.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just have a hard time believing his story. I mean, there's always a way out. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to do that.
Yep.
You did the most extreme thing that you could do to wipe out the soul of another person.
Yeah.
There's always a way out.
There are always social workers that not only want to get involved, they do get involved. And there's Medicaid still in this country if you can't afford Medicare. You're absolutely right, Yaya. There's always a way out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Hey, I'm glad I'm glad to hear you on the media again, Frank. We missed you from TV.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, we're still on YouTube, so that's good.
Yeah. Thank you for your comments. And thank you for calling and sharing with us. 713-440-8870. You know, it's a very difficult point. The point made, there's always a way out. The problem oftentimes is people in the moment don't realize there's a way out. You often hear this when we talk about suicide, is that in the moment, the people often, when they commit suicide, believe there is no other alternative. And that's what's so sad. I want to remind everyone, though, that the suicide hotline is 988. If you are ever feeling despondent or feel in a position like the story we're talking about, reach out for help. Call for help and find that there is support and alternatives out there for you.
Well, and you've put that right into my next story here, that the Trump administration is considering eliminating the 988 suicide line that specializes in LGBTQ plus youth as a way to cut back on funding for next year's budget for mental health, according to a document reviewed by CNN. I think it's a terrible idea. We have a little short on time, but we need to jump into that because the suicide line is so important. Mm-hmm. And the number one cause of death in LGBTQ youth is suicide. It happens all the time. And how many of those kids committed suicide? And we didn't even know that was the reason because they were so in the closet in their own life that they felt, I've just got to kill myself because I'm going to disappoint my family so badly. I have nowhere to turn to. And then all of the lives that were saved. As of mid-March, more than 14.5 million people have called, texted, or sent chats to 988 Lifeline and been transferred to a crisis contact center since July of 2022. And about 1.2 million, so roughly 10% of those were LGBTQ+. 10%.
Remember, if you have a thought on this, please share it with us, 713-440-8870. Do you believe in the importance of these kind of resources? And also think to yourself about, should federal money be paying for these kind of sources?
Well,
what do you think?
And another point, should they be cutting out only the LGBTQ part of the suicide line? That's what gills me. Want to talk about discrimination.
713-440-8870. Allison is on the line from Houston. Allison, what's on your mind?
Hi, good afternoon. To add to what Frank was just talking about and what you were questioning about whether the government should be involved in paying for this, I have spent the last several years caring for Alzheimer's patients within my family, having a full-time job at the same time. And I want you to know that the resources out there are so very limited.
Yeah.
And Medicaid does not pay for Alzheimer's care. Memory care is at least $5,000 a month if you can find a decent place for that.
At least.
So I think as a community, I hope that we all look at ourselves and consider ourselves lucky to be as healthy as we are, but what about tomorrow?
Right.
I had a friend tell me, you should have planned for Alzheimer's in your life, and you should have been saving money for that. Really?
It's a little extreme.
So I acknowledge that what that man did in your news report about taking his wife's life is extreme, and I wouldn't wish that upon anyone to have to make any kind of decision like that. But I really hope that somewhere down the line we all come collectively together, including the LGBTQ communities, and look out for one another and try to come up with other resources so we can help each other with the government or without it. We're going to need it.
God bless you for saying that. You're right.
Allison, thank you so much for calling and for sharing your story with us. It's hard. We face in this life a lot of questions without answers, and oftentimes it feels overwhelming. But as Allison said, we hope that everyone come together and reach for each other to support and help one another. The number here is 713-440-8870.
Coming up on Hello Houston, we'll talk to the president and founder of the Institute of Students Loan Advisors about the Trump administration student loan collection drive. And we're also taking your calls on any of today's topics at 713-440-8870. This is Hello Houston on News 88.7.
Hi, I'm Craig Cohen, the host of Houston Matters. Join me weekday mornings at 9 or at your leisure on your podcast feed for your daily guide to the people, places, issues, and ideas that define Greater Houston. From politics to the economy, energy to the environment, healthcare to education to transportation and beyond. If it matters to Houston, it matters to us. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts or live on the air weekdays at 9 a.m. right here on News 88.7.
Elevate your impact with Houston Public Media. Today is New Member Monday. Now is the perfect moment to make a difference by becoming a new member. Your first donation supports trusted news, educational documentaries, and enriching arts on air. Join us in our mission to inform, educate, and inspire Houston. Visit houstonpublicmedia.org/donate and make your first contribution today. Together, let's shape a future filled with quality programming and community engagement. Thank you for being a vital part of Houston Public Media.
Support comes from Baylor College of Medicine, creating tomorrow's medicine today. Known for their medical research and innovation, Baylor College of Medicine is a proud sponsor of Houston Matters with Craig Cohen, Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. on News 88.7.
Support comes from School of the Woods, founded in 1962, offering Montessori education from early childhood through grade 12. Enrollment is now open. More info at schoolofthewoods.org.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Lockton, an independent insurance brokerage firm dedicated to helping businesses and their people reach their goals with ways to support and engage their employees. More at Lockton.com.
Tonight on Houston Public Media TV 8, the new season of Antiques Roadshow continues in Baltimore. See appraisals of more astonishing treasures and trinkets from the Maryland Zoo. Tonight at 7 on TV 8 or stream on the PBS app.
Support comes from the Rowan Foundation, hosting the Boldface Conference for Emerging Writers at the University of Houston, featuring poet, professor, and director of Texas Review Press, J. Bruce Fuller, May 19th through the 23rd. Early bird registration at boldfaceconference.com.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. And now here's Ernie Manus, Celestia Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
Intros back. You are listening to Hello Houston, as you just heard, and you are listening, and you're calling, and you're reaching out. Our number, 713-440-8870. We've got a lot of topics on the hot plates today, going back and forth, and so let's grab some phone calls. Jeanette from the Woodlands has something to share with us. Jeanette, what's on your mind?
Hi, I was concerned about unpredictable road debris because a lot of road patterns are picked up by sensors, or like things will get reported on waves as far as debris in the road, but we all know in Texas, like something can just fly randomly out the back of a pickup truck or something. And, what is the response time going to be for unpredicted items? Or is this stuff just going to slam into the 18-wheelers and mess up the roads, as far as the automated trucks go? I mean, it sounds like there might be some like last-minute knee-jerk things that might need to happen that I don't know that I trust the trucks with that.
Yeah, I hear you, Jeanette. I'm
good
back to
point.
those machines, though. It's always about the machines for me.
Jeanette was talking about the topic we were just discussing earlier about the driverless trucks that will be starting to move from Houston on I-45 to Dallas.
Yes, thank
Also,
you.
I think Colin from Spring Branch has a...
Yes, thank you, Jeanette. 713-440-8870. Colin, you're next.
Hi. I just was driving from Spring Branch to downtown using an autonomous electric vehicle.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, this happens quite often. There's quite a few EVs that have the capability.
Uh-huh.
So these vehicles are already on your streets. Now, granted, there is a driver who's supposed to be paying attention, but the car does an amazingly good job, and it's improved, every week with new features, and it does a pretty damn good job.
So what
And
do
let's
we
not
get?
forget-
What do we get wrong when we talk about these and my fear of the machine?
Well, yeah, I mean that. I think there was a time when automatic elevators generated a lot of fear.
Yeah, they scare me too.
They still kind of scare me.
You haven't seen the ones in our building, let me tell you.
Or heard them.
So, Colin, when you're in your vehicle, are you totally disengaging from the driving, or are you still kind of monitoring everything?
The car is monitoring me, monitoring driving. So if I don't pay attention, it sees where my eyes are, and it sees if I'm not paying attention and giving feedback regularly, it will disengage.
Last Friday, I had a hubcap that went right in, or whatever it was. Do they have hubcaps anymore, or whatever? Right in front of me on the Southwest Freeway going home from here.
Right.
And I was able to avoid it, but it's because I was a human being.
Right.
Colin, thank you very much for that, and I hope you have a safe, autonomous drive home.
Yeah, be careful.
And we also have some comments on YouTube about this. My British computer guy says, as a tech expert, it's too much tech to fail, and there are too many variables on the roads. Also, what about jobs? We've all heard of the bad accidents that Teslas have had. Imagine that compounded. So thanks, my British computer guy, for sending that comment over to YouTube.
Thank you. And remember, you can watch us on YouTube. All this is happening over there. Go to youtube.com and look for the Houston Public Media channel, or simply go to hellohouston.org and click that orange bar and come visit us. Okay, moving back into our stories. Last week, Secretary of Education Linda McMahon announced that starting May 5th, the government would resume collections of individuals who have defaulted on their student loans, a move that would affect almost 2 million borrowers. This move, of course, is in stark contrast to the Biden administration, which forgave almost $200 million in student loans over 5 million borrowers. McMahon criticized former President Biden's student loan policies in the Wall Street Journal op-ed, calling his model unsustainable. So, what should student loan borrowers know ahead of the Education Department's move to resume collection on defaulted loans? We're going to find out for you right now. To discuss with me is Betsy Mayotte, president and founder of the Institute of Student Loan Advisors. Hello there, Betsy.
Why, hello.
Well, hello. Okay, let's just start right off. Boy, oh boy, if you're somebody with a student loan, you've been swung both directions over the last few years, haven't you?
Yes, sir. It has been, listen, I've been working in student loan compliance and advocacy since the earth cooled. And I can say without being overly dramatic that this is the most chaotic time in the history of student loans.
Yeah.
So to put it simply, if I have a loan, let's say I borrowed $50,000, I have that loan, what's going to happen to me? What should I do?
Well, unless you're one of the approximately 5 million borrowers that are in default on their federal student loan, and if that's the case, by the way, you were probably in default pre-COVID, then nothing's going to happen to you. But if you are one of the 5 million that their loans are actually in default, and I think it's important that we define that in a second, then you are at risk to have your wages garnished, your tax refund taken. Even if you're on Social Security, they can garnish your Social Security.
Okay, so let's get back to what you were saying. Define these different terms that we're talking about.
Yeah, so federal student loans are kind of a unique animal. I call them the marsupial of the consumer debt world because they act really different than other types of consumer debt. If you're past due on your loan, meaning you missed a payment, or maybe you missed 3 payments, maybe you missed 6 payments, this isn't going to affect you. Default on a federal student loan isn't until you've actually missed your 270 days past due or more, and the loan has been transferred over to the Department of Education's collection agency. Now, if you're not sure if that's you, there's an easy way to find out. If you log in to studentaid.gov, it will tell you. There will be like a danger Will Robinson red flag, and it will say the word default. But if you're past due just, like a couple months, or you're in forbearance, or if you're in a lower payment option, then you are not in default, and this is not going to affect you.
Let me take you back a little bit to this whole concern over these student loans to begin with, which led to the Biden administration doing what they were doing, which is the idea that, and correct me where I go wrong on this, that these student loans became unfair because of the interest structures that were built into them, and they were burdening people. I guess because most times you want to think you borrowed money, pay the money back. But the curiosity in these student loans was it wasn't quite that simple, that they felt that the interest compounded on it and the way it was done to students was putting them at an unfair disadvantage. Do I have that right?
You do, but boy, is it complicated. How much time we got? 3-4 hours?
Yeah.
So listen, so part of what we're seeing with student loans is, that old expression, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Back prior to 2009, there weren't a lot of viable, for example, payment plans based on your income. And so they saw that borrowers were struggling, and they said, hey, let's make these payment plans based on income so they're affordable. And everyone said, great. But then what we saw happening is people making their payments every month, the payment amount they're being told to make that's based on their income, and yet their balance was going up rather than down because their payment was not enough to cover the interest. We also have seen a significant rise in the cost of education over the last 25 years. We talk about the student debt crisis, and it's a thing, but that's the symptom. The cause is the cost of education. And then there were other factors. If you couldn't pay and you had to ask for a deferment of forbearance, that's great. They'd pause your payments, but any accrued interest would get added to your principal. Now, the Biden administration attempted to ameliorate some of those things. They tried to create a payment plan that was not only based on income, but also made sure your balance wouldn't increase over time. They got rid of most instances where interest could be added to your principal balance. So, again, they did attempt to ameliorate some of that stuff, but we still have the core issue, which is the cost of education. I mean, even if he'd been successful in his loan forgiveness plans, that would have been great, but the loans would have just started accruing again the very next day.
So the Biden plan, that wasn't just getting rid of the loan completely. It was just making it more affordable for you. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, he tried a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
He tried to do some broad forgiveness. Both of those attempts got killed in the courts. And then he tried to create a new repayment plan called SAVE. And SAVE not only created a lower payment for many borrowers, but again, made it so if you made your payment, they forgave any interest that wasn't covered by your payment. So you weren't seeing your balance go up. And unfortunately, 13 attorneys generals filed suit against that, saying that he exceeded his authority. And that plan, although they haven't buried the body yet, that plan is dead.
We want to remind everybody we are speaking with Betsy Mayotte about student loans, and you can join the conversation at 713-440-8870.
So now let's move ahead to where we are with the Trump administration and what they're talking about doing now that we have the background of what was going on during Biden. And I guess where I would start in all of this, if you have defaulted on your loans, there's probably a reason you're defaulting to begin with. But take me through what this plan is now.
Yeah. So, to be clear, or to be fair, they were going to resume collecting on defaulted student loans regardless of who won the election. In fact, I actually thought the Biden administration was going to start back in January, and for whatever reason they didn't. The Secretary of Education is required to collect on these loans. These are debts owed to the federal taxpayer. So this was going to happen regardless. They've been on pause for 5 years. Borrowers who are in default will receive a letter or phone call or an email or all of those things, letting them know that what we call involuntary collections, which is the wage garnishment and tax refund offset, will be starting soon unless they do something to start paying on this defaulted loan, or better yet, resolve the default altogether.
Mm-hmm. I have seen some that suggest students or past students, those with these debts, file bankruptcy. Is that a logical next step for some of these folks?
Not necessarily. I'm glad you asked the question, though, because there's still a myth out there that student loans cannot be discharged in bankruptcy. And they can. It's not easy, but it's not impossible. Excuse me. Better steps for many borrowers might be to what we call rehabilitate the loan out of default, which would put the loan back in good standing. And then the borrower would be eligible for these payment plans based on income, or maybe even forgiveness under something like public service loan forgiveness. Rehab also removes the default line from their credit report like it was never there, which is another benefit. They can also consolidate out of default, which doesn't have all the benefits of rehab, but it still puts the loan back in good standing, and now you're eligible for these lower payment options.
It fascinates me. I'm curious, though, the interest structure. Has that remained the same now? These huge interests on top of that make these loans get so big. Has that been adjusted? Is there any movement there to make it more manageable?
Congress hasn't changed the interest rate structure in years. They may as part of budget reconciliation, but historically, anytime they change the interest structure on student loans, it's only for loans made on or after the date of any such legislation. Interest rates right now are fixed. If your federal student loan is 2006 or newer, you have a fixed interest rate, and that rate's based on basically what the market was doing at the time you took the loan out. Mm-hmm. They're usually based on 90-day Treasury bills or 52-week Treasury bills. The fact that interest can be added to your principal, as I mentioned, the Biden administration got rid of all the situations where that could happen except for 2, and those 2 remaining are in federal law. And actually, there's chatter that Congress might get rid of those 2 as well.
Which, Betsy, the Trump administration keeps saying what President Biden did with student loan forgiveness was illegal. Was that illegal, what he was doing?
All right. I'm not an attorney. I'm just a student loan nerd. The courts have stated that the 2 broad attempts at forgiveness were illegal. And they're much smarter than I am. And then the SAVE plan, the courts, although that litigation is not over yet, there's a very strong indication that the courts are going to indicate that SAVE plan also exceeded that authority. But the Biden administration did other things with forgiveness that were legal and did benefit a lot of people. They took a lot of the administrative nonsense out of the public service loan forgiveness program, allowing borrowers that should have been eligible before to get that benefit, which again is in federal law. It was actually passed by a Republican president. They got rid of a lot of the administrative nonsense that blocked people that are totally permanently disabled from getting their loans discharged. So, and those things have been deemed to be legal.
So, Betsy, where we are now, if you were asked, what would you tell the government they should do to fix this problem? I know we have 3 hours left. I'm just kidding. In a nutshell, I mean, there's got to be some kind of quick advice.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I go back to what I said a second ago. The student debt crisis is real, and we need to address that. And I have a couple thoughts there. But if we really want to solve this forever, we got to fix the cost of education thing. Mm-hmm. Because again, no matter what we do with the student loans, they're gonna keep going. And student loans are not necessarily a bad thing, but they should be a step up, not a setup. And for some people, it appears to be like a setup. As far as the student loan goes, one of the biggest things that this administration can do, and this is something that I've been saying for years, is to increase the level of transparency. So, the biggest issue right now is the unknown with borrowers because things are so chaotic. And I get that there's some things they can't say publicly for litigation reasons or whatever, but they do have the ability to be a lot more transparent. Also, making sure that the people on the front lines, the call centers at the servicers, that they're well informed so they can give borrowers the best advice. We're in the chaos because of that SAVE plan. Since we know the SAVE plan is dead, ensuring that whatever replaces the SAVE plan is something that's manageable for borrowers so they can, pay their loans as agreed, but do it in a way that still allows them to feed and clothe themselves. And finally, I would make sure that they weren't causing any anxiety around plans that are set into law by Congress. And therefore the borrowers have rights to those plans if they fulfill the eligibility for them.
Betsy, quick question. If I'm one of those students and I've gone onto the website and I see the big red warning that I have defaulted on my student loan, what should I do?
There's on that same website where you're seeing that Danger Will Robinson flag, there's going to be contact information over who is holding that loan. Get in touch with them and talk to them about loan rehabilitation or consolidation. And even better, before you do that, on that same website, you can look up to see how rehab and consolidation works. So you're informed already when you're talking to these people and can feel confident about the conversation that you're having.
Speaking of talking to people and having a conversation, we always invite the audience at 713-440-8870 to join in. And Josh is doing that right now from Cyprus. Josh, what's on your mind?
Yes, hello.
Hello. I think it's Jose.
Jose.
Sorry. Hello, Jose.
It's interesting because I proposed to my fiance to get married in a couple of months. But then after that, I find out that she has a huge student loan. I have a huge student loan myself. So now I'm debating, I'm going to go into marriage with a lot of debt. So I think it's a serious situation going on out there with that student loan. And what irritated me is that our government is giving billions and billions of dollars to those countries who are fighting war, and they're not addressing this situation here at home.
Jose, thank you for that. First of all, though, congratulations on your engagement, and I hope that this loan or this debt didn't sway your love. But thank you for sharing that with us. Betsy, any comments on that?
Yeah, so the first thing that came to mind is, my grandparents were married for 69 years, and when people used to ask them what the secret of their success was, one of the things my grandfather used to say was, when money goes out the door, love goes out the window. So, Jose, I hope that's not the case for you and your fiance. Congratulations. Piece of advice, though, assuming that she has federal student loans, make sure that when you file your taxes after you're married, if you file your taxes as married, filing separately, they will only take her income into account on her payment plan, assuming she's on a plan that's based on her income. So that's something to look into.
Good advice. Thank you for that.
That's right. Betsy Mayotte is the president and founder of the Institute of Student Loan Advisors. Betsy, thank you so much for joining us on Hello Houston.
My pleasure.
Coming up, the Houston Rockets sideline reporter Vanessa Richardson will join us ahead of the Rockets matchup with the Golden State Warriors tonight in San Francisco. Stay with us as Hello Houston continues.
On the next Fresh Air, a conversation with author and executive Daria Burke. She'll talk about her new memoir, Of My Own Making, which explores her growing up in 1980s Detroit amid addiction and instability, and the years she spent trying to outrun that past by building a carefully curated, outwardly successful life. Join us.
You're going to listen to Fresh Air. It's coming up tonight at 8 p.m.
It's one thing to love public radio, but it's
is a special thing to support it. Consider this. If you've got a car you don't need anymore, or you've got one that's simply too expensive to repair, you can arrange to donate it to Houston Public Media. We take any kind of vehicle in any condition. It's easy for you, pickup is free, and it could be worth hundreds of dollars in support. Visit HoustonPublicMedia.org/cars to learn more. And thanks.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from IL Texas, helping to prepare students for leadership roles in the international community by emphasizing servant leadership, language immersion, and character building. More at iltexas.org. Support comes from Downtown Houston Plus, with new businesses like Tenfold Coffee Company, Meow Wolf, Barbacana, Punchline Comedy Club, and Bubble Boba. Details at downtownhouston.org. Support comes from the Houston Zoo, presenting its annual Feast with the Beasts. Cuisine from a number of Houston's diverse eateries, animal experiences, live music, and more. May 2nd. More at houstonzoo.org.
And now back to Hello Houston. To comment on any of today's topics, call 713-440-8870 or email us at talk@hellohouston.org. Now back to Ernie Manous, Celeste Diaz-Sherman, and Frank Billingsley.
And, you know, there was a lot of conversation. We were just talking student loan and the debt crisis, and a lot of folks have a lot of questions that we weren't able to get to, but we're just chatting here around our anchor desk and saying, you know, is this an anchor desk? Our host table? Our host desk? Talking about having her back with us maybe at a later date and then doing like a whole segment where people just call in with their student loan questions. A lot of questions. It's really hard when you're getting out into this world and hoping to get out there, and then you're burdened with this debt, but you took a loan. You got a
she was a terrific guest. And I will say to Jose's point, you know, it's always smart to be upfront from the beginning when you get into a relationship, so that if it leads to engagement and marriage, everyone knows where everybody stands.
Well, we've been joking about relationships today. One we have definitely is with the Rockets.
That's right. The Houston Rockets faced a tough loss on Saturday, falling 93-104 against the Golden State Warriors. The team's stellar defense could not make up for their lackluster offense, and the Stephen Curry-led Stephen Curry, led Warriors sealed away the game in the fourth quarter. The Rockets are now down 2-1 in the series. Rockets will play Game 4 in the series in San Francisco tonight at 9 p.m. To give us a preview of what we can expect, we welcome Space City Home Network sideline reporter Vanessa Richards. Vanessa, good afternoon. Good morning for you. Welcome to Houston. Hello, Houston. Hi there, Vanessa. You there?
I see her on our Zoom, but
I
I don't know that she can hear us.
I think she hears us.
Now she hears us.
She hears us.
Speak. Do we
but
hear
we
you?
can't hear you.
Check there you are. There you are. We hear you.
There we go. Welcome to Hello Houston. Okay, so break down Saturday's game for us. What key moments led to this very sad loss?
Look, I just think that the Warriors are always a tough matchup, and they're not just a tough matchup for the Houston Rockets. They have had this run as a dynasty for a reason. So it's never ideal to be down 2-1, but by no means are the Houston Rockets out of this. And if anything, the Rockets, I think are known for playing a very selfless brand of basketball. So I think the fact that it could be anybody on any given night actually opens up opportunities. But, definitely a bummer to lose that game, especially since they didn't have Jimmy Butler. It would have been great to capitalize on that. But I think this team does a really good job, of moving on to the next opportunity, and that's Game 4 tonight.
Well, what has the team been doing right so far against Golden State? And what areas need improvement for tonight?
I think when you really take inventory of what this team does well and what they've done well all year, it's an incredible defensive mentality. And the thing that I enjoy the most about it, I think, is that it's so different than the rest of the NBA. So the rest of the NBA is focused on offense, focused on chucking up threes. And, a lot of teams in the NBA have one or two big superstars that do all of the heavy lifting, but the Rockets do almost the opposite of that. And it earned them the second seed. So, it's something that has clearly worked. And I think it's a great combination of, when you say what have they done well, it's a great combination of, the Fertittas having a great plan that they put in place, and then Rafael Stone drafted really well, and then they made a great hire with Ime Udoka, who brought in a great staff and added veterans. So it's been a lot of different ingredients to get, the Rockets to where they are right now. And again, by no means are they out of it. So I think it's going to be a really competitive and exciting game tonight.
So Jalen Green's success is obviously imperative if the Rockets want to win tonight. Do you think he'll show out tonight the way he did in game 2 of this series?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're dealing with so many young players that this is their first time in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that the veterans said over and over again, Steven Adams, Dylan Brooks, Fred, Van Vliet, all of them said, you can't replicate the playoffs. It's nothing like the regular season. So for a lot of the young guys on the Rockets, they're experiencing the bright lights and all of that for the first time. And I really liked that Jalen, after game 2, was very honest and vulnerable and said, that first game, the court was bigger and the lights were super bright. And so I think they have those nerves out of them, and I look forward to seeing what they can do tonight.
How is the team feeling ahead of tonight's game, and what have they been working on since Saturday's loss?
Well, as far as what they're feeling, I'm about to find out because I'm on the race to practice right now. But, I think it's a group of guys that they don't hang their head, and they all have a lot of faith and belief in each other. They all have a lot of chemistry on and off the court. Being down 2-1 in a playoff series is not a death sentence. And, everybody's uses the term must win, I think, very loosely now. Obviously, getting a win is imperative tonight, but being down 2-1 is in no way a deciding factor. I mean, this is a best of 7. And I've said from the beginning that I think it could possibly go to 7 just because of the nature and the matchup of these two teams. So I think the team is feeling good. I'm going to go do some interviews at shoot around, and then obviously the fans in Houston can catch the game tonight on Space City Home Network.
And so give us some context now. The Rockets were one of the worst teams in the league just a few years ago. How did they end up with one of the best records in the league this year? I mean, it is extremely exciting to watch from where they were to where they are now.
Yeah, it's definitely more fun to report, this season when they've been winning so much. But I think the quick turnaround, and I kind of mentioned it before, a lot of things have to go right for there to be that quick of a turnaround, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that Fertitta has said repeatedly is that the general manager, Rafael Stone, and his son Patrick came to him and said, we have this plan, and, this is what we need to do to get to where we want to go. And look, no fan base wants to lose. There were obviously some lean years, but the general manager drafted really well, and getting guys like Tari Eason that kind of flew under the radar, and then you have to develop that talent. And so they developed that by bringing in a really good coaching staff. And then I think they brought in the right veterans. Fred Van Vliet and Dylan Brooks are bona fide veterans with so much playoff experience. But then, they brought in Steven Adams, who was coming off of a surgery. And it was like, okay, if Steven can get back to being healthy, he could be a dominant force. And that's exactly what he has been. Mm-hmm. And then Jeff Green, Jeff might not have gotten a ton of playing time in the playoffs, but he is a champion. He won a championship with the Denver Nuggets, and he's been a very wise voice of reason for the guys. So it really is, in order for there to be what I think is perceived as such a quick turnaround,
right,
all of these things had to go right. And they were very intentional. None of it was by accident.
So how important has Coach Ime Udoka been been part of the success to this season?
Well, I mean, he's the head coach, so he definitely is the head of the snake. And I think the cool thing is, when he was hired, everybody knew that he was very, into the concept of just discipline, being on your P's and Q's. And I think what he did for the young guys is gave them stability, but he also gave them really high expectations. And if you ever hear one of Jalen or Alperen or Jabari, all those guys talk, they'll say, we realized if we didn't play defense, we were going to be sitting on the bench. And I think that they needed that, whatever you want to call it, that structure, discipline. But you also have to give a lot of credit to those young guys because they were willing to be coached. They have been very coachable. So, everything has been so wonderful and so much fun this year. And I think a lot of that has come from, like you mentioned, Ime and his staff. He's, I think, becoming known as one of the best coaches in the NBA for sure, for good reason.
So what does it mean to you to be covering the Rockets in the postseason?
Oh my gosh, so much fun. It's like, it is just so much fun. And I know, like, when Frank and I were both, working at KPRC, there was a period of time where it was like the Astros were really good. The Rockets were supposed to be really good. And then the Texans were supposed to be really good. And then, look, things happen and there are trades that happen. And so I think the fact that the Rockets are the team in town that are, I don't even want to say up and coming, because I think they've arrived. It's just so much fun. And I have a lot of gratitude, as somebody that gets to be courtside and see it all and see the growth, see the growth among the guys. Like I met a lot of these guys when they were drafted, when they were 19 and 20, and now they're 22, 23, and to watch their maturity and to get to know their families and to have that front row seat has been really fun.
Vanessa Richards is Space City Home Network's sideline reporter. The Houston Rockets face off against the Golden State Warriors tonight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Vanessa, thanks so much for joining us on Hello Houston. And go Rockets.
Go Rockets.
And that's all from us for today's show. Thanks so much for joining us on Hello Houston, and we will be back here tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to Hello Houston. Join us every Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to talk all things Houston. The Hello Houston production team includes Garrett Bowman, William Menjivar, Jen Altai, Todd Holslander, and Jim Kovacic. For the latest in local news, subscribe to the Hello Houston daily newsletter at HoustonPublicMedia.org. Hello Houston is a production of Houston Public Media. The opinions expressed by the guests of this program are solely their own and do not represent the views of management, staff, or underwriters of Houston Public Media. This is News 88.7.
For today, partly cloudy skies, and this is your NPR station, KUHF Houston News 88.